Quirky enemy robo cyborg titties! Excuse me? So now that I have your attention, would you be interested in playing another JRPG? Bait and switch me like that, I swear. Now hold on, Kim really wanted us to play this one. It's a lesser known classic from the PS2 called Xenosaga. Oh, come on. Isn't that a trilogy? That's gonna end up being 3 whole videos. Yeah, right. It'll have to be 3 videos. This is the Monolith team who created Xenogears and Xenoblade, right? Yup, it's also before Bandai Namco swooped in and scooped them up. That happened in 3. And you'll also be able to tell the difference in budget. Even still, episode 1 turned out really nicely. Well, I guess we're gonna try out one of Kim's favorites. Let's see what's so great about Xenosaga and if it's still worth hunting down. She's been asking for this one for quite a while now, so she'll be really excited. Kim's a big fan of watching us playing with ourselves. Oh, no! I just realized what that could mean! Why did we call the show Playing With Myself? We gotta change the name before somebody gets the wrong idea. How is YouTube not taking us down yet? So, Hamster, what do you think? You've just been staring blankly at the game for hours. Sorry, this intro is really taking a while to move on. Also, there's a tremendous amount of lore and information to catch up on. This is just part 1. At this point, you should just roll with the punches. Part of the aesthetic of the world is how much attention everything has been given. There's nothing wrong with appreciating that it's there, but zooming right by it. I'll check back in the database 5 questions, I guess. Hold on, is it just me, or is this game mostly cutscenes in the beginning? Yeah, sorta, but it'll pick up. Both in terms of gameplay and in more action-y cutscenes. The game just needs to teach you about the world first. This is borderline Metal Gear Solid 4 levels of cutscenery, where gameplay is just brief moments of running to the next cutscene. Grab some popcorn and get comfy. We are straight up watching a 50-hour movie. Most of the time in this game, and especially in the beginning, you're watching cutscenes. I'm great at those parts. Then, outside of turn-based combat battles, you'll usually be running around ships and talking to people. You're wandering around these quiet, stagnant areas until something happens. The combat is actually pretty unique in that it allows you to see whose turn it'll be well in advance, allowing you to strategize your party better. I do really dislike turn-based combat, but that little strategy element makes it a lot more interesting. However, had the game been on a single generation of hardware later, I'd no longer find it excusable. Fortunately, Xenoblade went for action-based combat instead. Other than fights, there's still puzzles and stuff on your way to the next cutscene. And those puzzles suck. They're just time wasters stalling the game out. Nothing is ever challenging, just tedious. Yeah. But anyway, the game also lets you go backtracking to past areas to find previously inaccessible goodies and stuff. Since it's a story-based game, this would be impossible, so you use this giant VR machine called the UMN to do it. Enemies don't change levels there, so don't expect a level grind in the UMN. Granted, you won't really need to in this game anyway, but still, for PS2, your encounters are shown in the overworld, and you can approach them from behind and even paralyze them for advantages in battle. That's good to see considering how much it adds to the strategy of the game. Otherwise, the entire game might slump into a walk forward and press the circle button game. If that's all you were hoping for, then you'll love all the dialogue and cutscenes. Best game ever! Normally I get really weirded out by people trying to do the anime-styled characters in 3D, but something about the age of this game makes it look fine. What? Well, okay, I can get that some games like Persona can be a little jarring between gameplay and animated cutscenes, but this is all 3D. No, I'm talking about hardware limitations. Animated 3D characters back then couldn't be very detailed anyway, and this hits a perfect middle between cartoony and as good as we could get. I kind of think they look good with the sprite work you see in battles too. Had they tried to make everyone realistic with this hardware, like many others at the time tried, they'd be hitting an uncanny valley in all the wrong ways. Enemies, characters, and environments all look good. Nothing's too bland or off-putting. Everything seems to fit and feel right in the world. It slightly predates the Brown era of games too, so it's also bright and colorful. It's a shame most environments are still a little on the dull and bland side. The game's appearance is down 5%. Hamster, the disc needs to be cleaned. At least they went to the lengths to model new battle arenas for each area of the game. It's something we've come to expect from all competent video game developers anymore. Was that a Game Freak jab? That was a Game Freak jab. There's a lot to say here. It's a full-on JRPG after all, even though it is just episode 1. The story takes place in the very distant future where humanity has populated a tremendous amount of space, and space travel is as commonplace as driving to work. You start as Xion, a chief executive employed under a massive company called Vector, working on developing an insanely powerful battle android war machine codenamed kos-mos. Your ship is attacked by a strange otherworldly alien threat called the Gnosis, and kos-mos suddenly awakens to protect Xion. But due to the Gnosis's other dimensional abilities, only kos-mos has the ability to damage them by tearing them out of their neighboring dimension and into ours by the use of her weird head pulse attack thing, the Hilbert effect. Ship goes boom, but Xion and kos-mos survive, to be later picked up by a group of space looters. They stay with this group while political turmoil and various enemy factions attempt to hunt them down or hinder their progress on their way to a safe haven planet, Second Miltia. They meet up with several new faces who join your party along the way, each with their own problems and reasons for assisting your growing band of survivors. If you've played literally any JRPG before, you already know this song and dance. It is so much more complicated than that. The developers put an absolutely absurd amount of work into figuring out how practically everything in the galaxy works in about 4,000 years, down to the new way to calculate time, simulate weather conditions on spaceships, and forming government and radical extremist groups. Imagine if someone from 4,000 years ago was suddenly able to walk around in our world today. Assume they understand English perfectly for some reason, but literally everything else they'll experience will feel foreign and bizarre. That's what it feels like being in the world of Xenosaga. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. Oh, come on! And I look at it, I'm just amazed with how much effort went into sculpting the world. It's impressive and all, but that doesn't help when I feel completely out of the loop on conversations I'm not sure I'm supposed to understand at all. You'll need to look up a lot in order to really stay with it and not get completely lost. Even if you don't want to pay it much attention, it's still a story where you get to play as a frighteningly heartless and absurdly powerful android who can straight up manifest sword arms and Gatling guns out of thin air. kos-mos even gets an interesting self-sacrificial character arc here, as her programming begins to grant her an unintended yet real personality. Through blips in her usually cold character, we get a glimpse into a sad and lost woman searching for something to keep her from feeling incomplete. But if you're not into that stuff, she's also packing a couple of Mondo Robo-Knockers. But can she kill anybody with them? Not until episode 3. But she can. But she can! It's a fully orchestrated soundtrack that you'll be able to recognize if you're familiar with Xenoblade's music. Yeah, some tracks are great, but there's still a ton of environments and cutscenes where nothing plays at all. What's up with that? At least each new environment has new tracks and battle themes. None of them ever got on my nerves or anything either, so it doesn't annoy me. Man, guess that's good enough. If you're a fan of Xenoblade at all, you gotta check out Xenosaga if you still have access to a PS2. If this wasn't enough cleavage for you, just look at Ziggy. If you prefer games that you can spend countless hours playing and discovering a deeply developed world complete with lore and fleshed out characters, then this one might surprise you with its content. Do you shamelessly emulate games? Well, lucky you, because this series is rare, expensive, and only on the PS2. You filthy pirate scumbags. Walk the plank, you dirty landlubbers! The positive gamer in me had a great time with Xenosaga, giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Sure, the game has some lulls and drawn out bits, but in the end product doesn't suffer much for it. Plus, the story and ending of Part 1 are good enough to stand on their own without 2 and 3. All in all, I enjoyed the ride and recommend it as a generally forgotten title. The critical gamer in me reluctantly gives Xenosaga a 5 out of 10 for practically being a super long movie with generally slow-paced gameplay spliced in between. This game can be enjoyed to nearly the same degree simply by watching all the cutscenes online. That's not great, but it's still a solid game, as long as you're willing to accept more watching rather than playing. So is Kim crazy for being a fan of this fossil? How do your positive and critical sides rate Xenosaga Episode 1? Let us know in the comments below. But if you're overselling the game just because of a pair of cyborg anime boobs, you're just playing with yourself. I get it now! Hold up! We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the great people over on Patreon, so let's thank this month's Patreon members. Thank you so much to Atomic Thomas, Ben, Sid, Denny, Erica, Kai, Patrick, Pyro Joe, Rowan, and Squad Fam. Also, special thanks to Kim for adding a chibi Shion to this week's whiteboard. Let me know which games you would like to see a positive and critical review of in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!